Hello everyone, this is Emily, and today I'm going to be going over the very basics of GIMP 2.8. Usually when you open up GIMP 2.8, it's probably going to look like this. You're going to have at least, 2 or 3 windows. And so this window over here is usually going to have your image that you're editing, and this is your toolbox with usually attached with it is your tool options, and then this is going to be your layers window. So if you don't have any of either of these, you at least need to have this so that you have your options like up here. If you don't have these windows, then you go up here to Windows, either recently closed docs or dockable dialogues. So for the toolbox, you just go click on, I think, tool options, yeah, and you will probably get that window, and then layers is over here. Otherwise, those are the most important windows to have around. Okay, so if we want to open a new image, you go to File and New, or hit Control N, and then you're gonna get a pop-up asking your image size. That's like the most important thing. Other options are like resolution, and this is important in case you want to print it out, but you can always change these later. So I'm just gonna go with the default image size, 640 by 400. It's not the tiniest dimensions, but it's not that big either, so it's probably not going to be that heavy on your computer. Okay, so now we have a 640 by 480 image, which you can also change the dimensions at any time. The first thing I'm gonna teach is how to navigate through your image. So the two most important things I would say are panning through the image and zooming. So, and I usually like to use hotkeys. So I'm going to go over the hotkeys for zooming in. For zooming in, it's Shift plus. So I use that plus button that is like above your enter button. So Shift plus, and it zooms in by a certain amount. And then zooming out is just the minus button next to that plus button that you were using. Okay? And now to pan, you just hold down your space bar and then move your mouse around. As long as your mouse is hovering, usually just hovering over the image window. Okay, and then I think you can also click on this drop down and then zoom in and out quickly, but I never use that myself. And then the other way of zooming in and out is the magnifying glass over here. The zoom tool or hotkey Z, I never use that, and you would just click and drag. For example, if I were to, just for perspective's sake, if I were to click and drag with my tablet, then it's gonna, go along as much as possible with what you just clicked and dragged. Okay. And for zooming out, I guess you have to click on this, select the zoom out option under the tool options, and then you're gonna click and drag and zoom out that way. I never use that because I feel like that's pretty inefficient, but it's up to you. And I find that the mouse is not really gonna work unless I put my stylus over this thing. It's really weird. Like, I guess I don't draw with my mouse. It's just calibrated or meant for my tablet. Now I'm gonna briefly go over pressure sensitivity because by default it doesn't have pressure sensitivity if you have a tablet. And if pressure sensitivity is not on, then you go to Edit, preferences, and then go to input devices down here, and then you go to configure extended input devices, and then there are several options over here, and you go to the Wacom tablet pressure stylus, or whatever tablet you have. You don't use the eraser to draw, you use the actual front point end of your stylus. And then by default it is disabled, so I set mine to screen, and then you click on save and close, and that should work so that it's not just going to be you know, uniform throughout the brushstroke. It's going to react to your pressure and going to be more or less opaque depending on the pressure that you put onto your tablet. So now I have this stuff all over my my canvas, and I want to clear it as quickly as possible. All you do is hit delete, and one of the other greatest tools that you can use here is the Control-Z button, in case it's like, oops, I made a mistake, and you can just hit Control-Z. Now if you want to undo the undo, or what they call a redo, you can hit Control-Y. So if I'm like, okay, like that was a mistake, then I can go back with Control-Y. So Control-Z and Control-Y are opposite from each other. It's the redo and undo. So people definitely use the Control-Z a lot more. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over drawing on the image, and usually I like to do it on a layer above the background because I don't like to draw in the background. Because if I were doing line art, then it's literally like it's gonna be like stuck to the white background. It's kind of hard to explain. And then if I wanted to color underneath it, I'm gonna have to color on top of the lines, right? If I wanted to do line art, I want the color to be beneath the lines instead of like on top of it, or have to stress so much about making sure I miss the lines, right? So now I made this change foreground color window pop up by clicking on this square over here, and these two squares represent the foreground color and the background color. So to pick colors, I always pick click on the top left square, which is change foreground color, and you come up with this window. And I always click on this tab over here with the triangle inside the circle, so that the outer circle is for picking your color, and then the triangle is for picking the different shades of the color, all the way from the grayscale all the way to, you know, the saturated version of the color. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to the layers, right? So I almost never paint on the background layer unless it's just one solid color. So what I like to do is make a new layer by clicking on this bottom left icon, the dog-eared page, and then it's gonna ask you what kind of layer you want, and I think by default it's gonna tell you transparency, so I always make a new transparency. And you can name it whatever you want, but you try to name it so that you're less confused about what are the contents of the layer. Okay, so I'm gonna put down line art and hit OK. And so the reason why you can't really see like anything different, it's because it's a transparent layer. And so like the only way to make it like another background layer is to like fill the whole thing in, and so I switched my tool to the fill bucket tool, or Shift B, and then it's gonna color in, it's gonna fill it in with whatever color you have over here, the foreground color. And right now it's white, so if I color this in, now it's white. Now it is a solid color throughout the layer. But otherwise, when you have a transparent layer, then you can have just, you know, limit the amount of content or pixels or whatever in that layer. So if I hit Control Z, you know, it's back to having absolutely nothing. So now I hid the bottom layer. So if I hit this eye and then, so if I hit the eye icon over here, it means I've hidden that layer. It doesn't mean I got rid of it or deleted it. It just means that I hid it. It's hiding. So, but when I click on that box again, it appears. So now, just demonstration's sake, I'm going to hide the bottom layer and show you this transparent layer. This is the only thing that's showing up, but this checkerboard, this gray checkerboard, is not showing this transparent layer. Instead, it's showing you that there's nothing there. This gray checkerboard represents absolutely nothing, which means that if you were to save this image and then upload it onto the internet and like embed it somewhere, it's gonna show up as nothing. If you have like a background on the website that's like yellow, then you're gonna just see yellow. Or if I were to probably like click on that image, then you would see absolutely nothing, because it's just a transparency. Like, just think of it as a transparent piece of paper and you're not able to see anything on it. Now, if I were to draw something like this on it with the paintbrush tool over here, which is hotkey P, and make sure I have a different color so you can see. Now, if I were to upload this, then this is all you see. You don't see anything else. You don't even see the gray checkerboard. But if I unhide the background, then you're gonna see a solid white background with all of this on top of it. So the reason why we use layers is to keep things organized, mostly. So for example, you know, I draw this green thing and then I want to erase it, but I don't want to erase anything on the bottom. So notice when I use the eraser tool, hotkey Shift E, I can only erase what is green because I only drew green stuff on the line art layer. If I wanted to erase anything that's like red and black, which is on the bottom layer, on the background layer, I have to select that layer and then come back here and erase that. And notice how the green is staying there. It's because the green is not on the bottom layer. Okay. What else? As an example, I'm gonna, you know, do some line art. Let's say I want to make some kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm making right now. So if you make some kind of line art, you want to do it on a separate transparency layer, usually above the layer that you're going to use for color. Okay, and let's say this is my line art, and I don't even want to paint on my background layer. So what I'm going to do is click on the background layer, and then click on this icon again, the new layer icon, and then I'm going to name it color. Okay, And then I want to make sure that it's below the line art. Otherwise, if I put the color on top, then I'm going to be coloring on top. And I want the lines to show up above the color layer. And so the quickest way to put it beneath is to either click and drag it, which sometimes that doesn't work for me for whatever reason. So then I just hit the down arrow, and you can use these arrows to move the layer above or below other layers. So you could just click the down arrow. Now, to increase or decrease your brush size, you can either come over here to the tool options, and so here's the size slider, and you can just click over here or over there, and then or click and drag for the size, and just look at this number and just know how big it is, like compared to, you know, this image, just for reference. And so this is a nice size. I also like to use hard edge brushes. So right now this is a soft edge, as you can see. And if I wanted to get a hard edge, I could click on this and then pick one with a hard edge over here. Okay. And then I can color this in with whatever color, I don't even know which color I want. Let's pick this purple magenta thing. The fastest way to increase or decrease the brush size are the hotkeys right bracket or left bracket. So in case you don't know what the brackets are, they look like this. This is left bracket, and this is right bracket. And to decrease, you hit the left bracket, and now it's at 1. That's the smallest size it'll go. To make it bigger, you can keep hitting the right bracket, or just hold it down and watch it as it grows. And then just color this in until it's completely opaque. And then now I feel like picking another color, and you can just come over here and just pick another color. And I'm probably not gonna, I'm gonna try not to go into detail with this because it's not what this is about. Okay, now for different brush dynamics, like I usually like to use a brush that changes in size and opacity depending on the pressure that I put down. So so if you scroll down, or if this window's not long enough, you can scroll down, and then there's this blue arrow for the brush dynamics. You click on that, and then I would click on this other blue arrow down here. So now this is the different options for your brush strokes. So on default, I think it goes to basic dynamics. And you can check to see like what exactly it's doing by going to the editing, I think this is the editing window or something like that. So you click on this page with a pencil over it, Paint Dynamics Editor, and it tells you exactly what it's doing. So if you apply more pressure, it's going to be more opaque. If you draw faster, it's going to be bigger. And if you tilt it, it's going to angle it. Yeah, I never use that. And it's going to be more opaque if you fade it. Yeah, I almost never play with all these other all these other boxes. So that's a really weird dynamics to me. And then you can also play with like this, except actually you can't because I guess these are all default paintbrush options. Now this is one that I made by myself, so if you want to make a new one, you click on this dog ear page. So you make a new dynamics, and it's gonna be by default named Untitled. I'm just gonna name it new custom brush, and then now you can adjust it by going to the mapping matrix or opacity or size. So then if I go to opacity, for example, now you're gonna have a graph that tells you how much pressure do you have to, apply in order to get a certain opacity. So, for example, right now it's a linear relationship. Oh God, I'm just talking about all this old math stuff. I probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But let's say, I don't want to have to press so hard in order to get it really opaque. So then I can manipulate this curve. And then already if I apply like this amount of pressure, it's already going to be completely opaque. And actually, it's not even, okay. So probably the reason why it's doing this is because I didn't hit those tick marks. So you go to the mapping matrix, and there is not even a relationship between opacity and pressure. So I have to hit this tick mark. Now there is a relationship, and right now, the reason why it's going completely opaque really quickly is because of that graph that I manipulated. So it's already at the max when I hit even like more than half, a little bit more than half pressure. So I can just reset the curve, and then now it's a little less sensitive. So the other option I like to do, I like to tick off on the mapping matrix, is the size box versus pressure. So now I should have the size being different depending on the pressure. So I'm actually gonna hide this and create a new layer to show you more clearly. The only problem I have with this is that you can't even see the circle that you normally see. So, right, if I untick the size box versus pressure, you can at least see the circle at all times. Even if it's like really tiny, and if I zoom in, you can totally see this circle, or now it's a square because it's 1 pixel. But once you hit that size versus pressure box, you can't see it at all because it's changing as you are painting, and I find that pretty annoying about GIMP 2.8. But it's probably just something you have to get used to and know your numbers versus the image size, I guess, to know like how big it's gonna get. So, but as you change, usually as you change the size, like the right and left bracket, it'll show you. I guess on my other computer it does that, but I guess here it's not going to. So, but otherwise this is like my favorite option. Just very simple. Whoa. I don't know what happened here. Yeah, so just opacity and size depending on pressure. I think for now, that's about it for the very basics. So if you have any quick questions, you can ask me in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video.